All right, today is the day. And with the Aerotape project, we're just going to look at a little more lamination going on. I actually also cut out the foam for the bulkhead or the firewall. And so we'll see that and just a little shortcut on some lamination on one of the doors because I need to go ahead and get at least a few layers of lamination done on each part of the mold so that I can actually take it apart. It's been kind of a little bit of a pain to work with all the molds bolted together. So once I get at least all the flanges laminated, I can take the whole thing apart and then be able to put like the molds up on the workbench and work on those a little more easily. Maybe we can take a look at that. But first I wanted to talk about something that's kind of interesting to me. I guess the Geneva Motor Show got canceled. And so I've come across some videos of Christian Koenigsegg decided to, since he had all of his stuff delivered to Geneva, decided to set everything up and pretend like it was really going on. Well, actually they just produced a video to kind of to show the things they've been building up and get ready to show at the Geneva show. Of course, pretty smart move to be able to show the world rather than just say, the heck with it, we're gonna have to wait till next year. Anyway, I'll put a link in the description to that video that he produced. And of course, also, he invited a lot of the automotive bloggers that cover the supercar world. And those videos, if you like to see those things and a little more description of the cars that he's building, they'll be linked in there as well. A couple of the ones that I appreciate anyway. But anyway, I've watched the Koenigsegg project grow with a great interest. Because Christian's kind of doing what I wanted to do when I was young, like his age. And he's the one that actually did it, and I'm glad that someone could take that mantle. But it's been interesting that he has done so much in 25 years that it just really is astounding. Trying to think of all the innovations that he's come up with, things that you probably always thought of, why don't they do this and why don't they do that he's actually done it. And I'm just assuming from what I've seen that it's purely his drive, and I can't say just drive. I think there's something about Christian that since I've never met him, all I can go by is what I've seen in videos, that he has just seemed like a nice guy. And I think that's probably the way he runs the business, and the people that he's hired love to work for him. That's the only way I can think of, is that he gives an open opportunity for them to experiment and come up with ideas, and that he's a good person to work for, that must foster the creativity that creates some of the things that come out of there. And you can't say it's because he sells cars for lots of money and has a lot of money to hire good engineers, because he literally started from zero, doing the same thing I'm doing, building a one-off prototype and going out there and raising money trying to build it. So he started from the point of zero, and all of this has come from just pure innovation. The things that he's done, he has his free valve technology using electric solenoids to run valves. Of course, I don't know if he's using any of that on these things. In the video, he says 3-valve or free valve on the new car, but I couldn't tell. But anyway, the free valve technology he sold, and it's been used in Malaysia or some other company, I think in Asia. That technology is, at least they've developed it to where it's being used by somebody else. But he developed the system of using it without transmission, just using direct drive coupling with basically viscous coupling to drive what you would call the transmission, but it's just an output to the differentials sending it out. He's always been innovative in composite use. They developed their own 9-speed transmission. They built their own engine in-house. Things that other companies, like even Pagani, has decided they can't accomplish or don't want to. They just, bring engines in from other manufacturers that do that kind of thing. The transmission, that's just incredible to build your own transmission when there's so many companies that's what they focus on. Anyway, like I said, just a lot of innovation that comes out of the things that he's done. able to set records, produce these incredible cars. The only thing that until now has been my downfall with Koenigsegg is they just haven't been the most beautiful cars, at least in my opinion, until now. And when you, if have a chance to go watch this video of their release in Geneva, you might be of the same opinion as me that they have really progressed and become incredibly beautiful cars. The new Jesko and this new 4-seat sports car that he's come up with, just incredibly beautiful. And well, nothing I can say is I really appreciate what he's doing in the automotive world. Really putting up a mile mark to other manufacturers to compete against somebody that just come out of nowhere. And when I say come out of nowhere, I mean that literally. You've got people like McLaren, who's grown massively in the last 10, 15 years, but they came from the world of racing and they've done lots of automotive stuff before they went into this major production mode that they're in now. Pagani, he started out in the automotive industry, working with Lamborghini in their composites world. But anyway, all these other competitors that he's working against have all have some experience and some connection into the automotive world, whereas Christian came from a young person that saw a movie and wanted to build cars. They say it takes 20 years for a business to really mature and come into its own, and of course now 25 years into Koenigsegg, that's really true. Anyway, just some insights I had in the last few days. Anyway, I typically don't do this talking head video thing, but this kind of directly related to what we're working on here in this prototype. But if you like this kind of thing, let me know in the comments. Maybe we'll do some more, talk about other projects, other things that are going on in the world in the automotive industry. But anyway, let's go take a look at what we've been working on and see those few things we've been doing here in the shop this last week. So to start with, I'm going to create a template. Doing that by setting up a piece of rigid cardboard and attaching some paper to it. This paper now I can push to the edge and line up with the mold, create a little crease line, draw it on there, cut it out, and fit it to all the contours that are on that bottom side there. Once that's done here, I'm going to take this template that's kind of a floppy mess and move it over to the foam, because there's some things we need to add to it before we actually cut the foam. First thing is, it's going to be really critical to get this thing square against the bottom edge of that foam, because this is going to be what basically aligns the car, makes it sit level. The subframe will be attached to the bottom edge and up in 3 other places along this bulkhead. But if we get this bottom square perfectly, then we know that that subframe will hold everything straight. Like I said, the body will sit square to the road. Also, there are some ductwork on the sides. Now, most cars, this would be basically the area where there'd be a running board. But in this car, we've got some ductwork that's going to go along this bottom edge. And that's going to feed into the engine compartment, and it'll be part of the aero that feeds into the diffuser. Once those are planned out, then it's a matter of tracing this thing. Now, there are a couple places where I'm going to adjust the template to fit a little better, so flipping it up to see what my measurements were to, say, adjust here, tracing it out. This foam is 1 inch thick, so my first cut, when I start to cut this thing out, is not going to actually go all the way through, but I will take a second cut. You're not going to see that here, and that'll go all the way through to the craft paper on the backside. Again, that bottom edge is kind of critical, so we're going to make sure we get a nice straight cut. Like I said, this craft paper is bonded extremely well to the foam, and the craft paper will be a good bond between the epoxy and the fiberglass, as it'll absorb a little of the resin and bond to it, so not going to have any trouble with a good bond. After it's all cut out, I'm just going to break this thing apart, kind of like a puzzle. It clicks together. And always, of course, the problem with working with foam is that a little static electricity and sticks to everything. At least it doesn't itch, huh? The problem with fiberglass. Then bring it over, take a trial fit. There's a couple of things that are going to have to be done before this thing's actually laminated in place. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that now. Some of the things are going to have to be cut out of this as we get the laminations going. First off, you remember there are some hinge areas in the back here. And we're going to have to create a structure that's going to hold the whole, basically a roll bar system. And then there's going to be some hardened points for structure connecting the subframe and for the seat belts. And this will all be laminated in as part of the foam is cut away, and then those cutaways are filled with multiple layers of lamination. Basically, a roll bar structure that may be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches thick. And then, of course, as I mentioned, as I'm going to show you a little quick video of some lamination for the door. And as I said, this the tub is ready to come out of the molds, but we need to go ahead and do some, at least the first part of the laminations for the doors and the engine cover, those parts that have flanges that are adjacent to the tub. That way, when they come out of there, of course, all the flanges will create the parting lines that'll be matched up directly. I only need to get a few layers of fiberglass on here, enough to create that turn back on those flanges, and then I can take these parts all out and work on the bench. It's going to be a lot easier than on the floor here, or tipping this whole mold assembly back and forth, be able to access it. You'll see I have to step through the windows, the windshield here, to be able to reach things easily. Luckily, there are those points that I can get through. Anyway, this is just a quick run through of what it takes. This is actually about a 7-minute video that we're watching here, cut down to a little under 3, it looks like. This whole door, just with 4 layers being put on it, was about 6 hours of lamination work. So you can see, pretty labor intensive, especially when you're in here like in this little 3/4 inch groove trying to put this fiberglass in here. Large surfaces, of course, faster. Well, there you go. Pretty short this week. Of course, there was other video that was taken of other parts going on in the car, but they'll show up in different videos, and other things going on that don't ever show up in video that took a lot of my time. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, and we will see you again.